Photograph is the quintessential Def Leppard song, a genre-defining example of a decade in rock history, and a signature mark of the Steve Clark era. With melodic hooks, colourful imagery, and blockbuster production, it's the iconic opening riff that perfectly sets it all up and cements the band's and Steve's legacy. Over the years, there have been some confusion on how the riff is played and where, even seen different methods used by the band themselves. So how is it played, and what is the magic of the sound? The first bit of magic about the riff is that it's actually two guitars, and that is vital to getting the right sound. Let's read from the man himself on how it was done. From Guitar for the Practicing Musician, December 83. Photograph was a good example of using harmony chords in the beginning of a song. So many people ask me how to play the beginning because they think it's one guitar. If you listen closely, it's two guitars playing different inversions of an E. So what are these harmony chords and where do we play them? Maybe we can source a tab book from that time era. Yes, this one will tell us. Although this book is mocked, and rightfully so, it is the source to tell us exactly how to play this riff, but not from the tab or music, from the interview. The intro is all harmony chords. It's done with two guitars. On the last part of those chords, there's a good example of what I mean. I play the 7th fret notes of A, D, and F sharp. Phil plays in A, E, and the A octave. You've got to put those two chords together if you want it to work. You can't get it exactly on one guitar. This interview, also conducted by John Styx from the previous quote, is an excellent insight from Steve and Phil on each track from Pyromania and also High and Dry. Just stay away from the tab section. So, that's the secret, the harmony chord. In my opinion, the harmony chord is this one. And there's an interesting history on where it was used and not used live. First, here's one more interview of Steve mentioning this. A translation from Young Guitar Archives, Volume 3. If you don't play that riff with two guitars, you can't get that same sound. But people often ask me about that. They want to know what chord we use, but we don't use standard chord formations. It goes something like this, right? And here's the most important part. It's a D chord at the end of the riff, but each guitar plays the chord differently. I play like this, and Phil does this. Right? And that's how we make the sound. It's an odd chord. Again, we have Steve mention that he plays one chord and Phil plays the other. Notice also that this time he says that the last chord is an inversion of a D, not E, as he said previous. Although this interview is translated, and possibly more prone to error, I think this one is right. The E could have been misheard as for native English speakers, they will sound very similar, especially if the speaker doesn't sound their consonants very hard, something I'm guilty of too. But when it came to live playing in this era, it seems that Phil never played the harmony chord. We can see that at the Denver show, and also Mountain View. He is barring the 7th fret on that last chord, like Steve, which is the A, D, and F sharp. It is actually Steve who plays the harmony chord, exactly once, on the second round of the intro. You can see and hear it better on the Mountain View show. See the second time round? He's playing the harmony chord shape. You can see Steve play the second shape on the Denver show, but it's not as audibly different. The soundboard from that show, you can hear it though. On the Pyromania tour, it's the same thing, and you can really hear it on this Milan show from '83. It seems that Phil never played the harmony chord until the Adrenalize tour. And that's when both guitarists actually started the song too, after a count-in from Rick. They never did that in the Hysteria era. You can see and hear the harmony chord is played, and then when the drums come in proper, they both play the regular chord. Notice that now the intro is played in the 2nd and 4th positions instead of the 7th and 9th. Why is that? Steve and Phil seem to always play it in the 7th and 9th positions during the Pyromania and Hysteria tour, but as you can see, Phil and Viv have consistently played it in the 2nd and 4th positions ever since. I don't know the reason for the change, and although some think it was originally played there, I disagree. Rock of Ages, a very similar opening riff, sharing similar chords and chord shapes, is played in the 2nd and 4th positions, so Steve would know he could play Photograph there, but he didn't. So I imagine it was conceived in the 7th and 9th position. One thought, for a reason the guys might have changed position, was that it added clarity with the guitars being tuned down. Yes, this is true, but Photograph wasn't tuned down on the Adrenalized tour. That was only for the likes of Hysteria, Love Bites, and sometimes Have You Ever Needed Someone So Bad if they were to play it. They would of course start tuning down across the whole set in later years. I would guess that the change in position coincides with Phil actually playing the harmony riff. You can see in this clip from the Leppard Vault that when Phil demonstrates the riff, he plays the harmony chord in the 2nd and 4th position. That's pretty much it for this little look into the Photograph riff. If you're as obsessed as I am with the music, then I hope you found it interesting. As someone who's tried to imitate the playing of Steve, Phil, Viv, and Pete, I found many surprises along the way, and maybe I can find more. By the way, some of these quotes were wonderfully provided by the Steve Clark Guitar Fan site, which is now back up and running, and a great source for all things Riffmaster. You can find links to all things I have referenced in the description. Just before we end though, have you ever wondered who sang what for the Photograph harmonies? Well, on the Hysteria tour, and actually also on the Pyromania tour, it was like this. Photograph, photograph. There's actually 3 voices going on. Phil does this harmony, and still does to this day. Photograph, photograph. Sav does the top line, which was his job for a lot of the time before Viv joined the band. But he actually still does this today. He's doing it in a falsetto voice. Photograph, photograph. The last voice, doing the very consistent photograph, photograph, is, I believe, Rick Allen. Now, there's some shots on the In the Round concert where he isn't wearing his headset mic, but we know that they did extra filming on some of the tracks, so that isn't always a reliable source. You can see him with his headset mic and singing in the Mountain View recording. Viv is now doing this harmony. This is what I think, anyway. Did you need to know that? No. But I may never get another chance to highlight something as niche in another video. Okay, until next time, take care.